And yeah, it's a pretty sick pick. It's just a nice response versus the Dawnbreaker that will eventually ult in. But the funny thing is, seeing the Dawnbreaker picked up in this position with what is effectively just a Death Prophet walking in, Felt have no way to initiate right now. They have no way to start any team fight. And it's not like the Cut have the most tools either, but their tools are more reactive. It's more responsive. You Tornado or Boundless Strike and you run away from Felt, who are just running at you. I feel like in this last pickup, they've got to fix this problem now. Because right now, they have nobody to lead in with the Dawnbreaker. They have nobody to kind of carry them. And, well, they need what feels like a carry. I guess it could be Dawnbreaker carry, and then it's Dawnbreaker Dazzlane, and then they're looking for something else. But I don't know. I don't like this combination right now from Felt. In this last pick, they really got to change my mind here.
Feels like they need someone to be the clear-cut initiator. Part of the reason why you see the Cut go for someone like the Kunkka here that had that sort of ability to just start a fight with the combo, and a hero you were actually talking about back before I think we saw the Dawn and the Lina as a potential option, but well, now it's not really going to be playable for them. Meanwhile, if you're Felt, yeah, they're not buying into any sort of Monkey King carry nonsense. They're pretty damn sure
Mhm.
that's going to be Beat God's heroes, and they're banning accordingly.
Yeah, as they should, because Scourge is a scary guy, and there are a good few carries already banned in the draft, so he's already going to get shifted off, I think, some of his better choices. But I don't know, Felt they've really made me a non-believer here, and maybe it is as simple as just getting another hero to run at you. And I'm trying to think of other carries that will get the team fight started, but I don't know. It's a kind of a short order here, and you're laning versus Visage as well, so you'd want something that just kind of gets on top of them and doesn't have to worry about the birds. I don't want to hazard to say I feel like Jug's the option, but I don't know. I really am trying to struggle here, looking for picks. Maybe even Bristleback would be a good choice, I think, if it is a carry that they're looking for, but Ursa.
Eh,
Okay. Which means that it will probably be a 4-position Dawnbreaker and then a 3 DP, and then they'll switch things around. But versus the Visage, again, you don't really care. You just kind of walk away. Anytime he tries to get aggressive on the Ursa, the Grave Shield comes through, and then, well, you walk away from him. And at least he's a blink target. That's one thing that the Ursa does fill for Felt. After Battle Fury, after BKB, whatever he decides to go for, he'll get a blink dagger, and then he'll try to start on the fight. I'm just worried that Scourge is going to pick some big old illusion hero. Honestly, if they picked a hero like Naga right now, I think Felt have huge problems.
and I mean, the Ursa, if you get in range, if you stay on a target, yes, you do lots of damage, but there's a slow from Visage, there's a slow from Chen, there's literally everything Invoker has. There's just so many ways for the Cut to keep an Ursa at arm's length pre sort of BKB purchase, so it just feels difficult, and the rest of the lineup isn't really going to be overly helpful getting him into that fight either, so if they can find their targets, if they can find the initiation, great. They've got all the tools at their disposal, they have the damage, but how do they actually get in and stay in is going to be the question, especially considering we don't even know what the Cut are running for Scourge yet, so this could just be something that completely stonewalls them. His Bristleback is still in there. You know if there's too much to punish it either.
No, and I'm racking my brain here. Aside from the Naga Siren, really, I think that's the best choice. And then there are your other side options if you're afraid of the lane. Drow's still kind of kicking around here, where again, it's just the Ursa that has to go in. So if you get the Hurricane Pike and the BKB, then maybe Ursa is a little bit less problematic. They're spending a lot of time though here for Scourge, and it's a big choice to make, and I can understand why they're spending it, but let's see. That's a Shadow Fiend.
Uh, yeah, okay, who's taking what? That's, I'm waiting to see that. It's Scourge who will take the SF, so um everybody might want to maybe avoid their pubs for the next day or so, because if the Cut win this game with a position 1 Shadow Fiend, then it's not going to be good for anyone else trying to play normal games.
And I'm a little bit hesitant to say that this is the pick. Of course, Shadow Fiend versus Death Prophet in the middle lane is pretty great for Shadow Fiend, but that's where you side lane your hero, and a hero like SF that is extremely XP hungry. Is it going to work to the same effect? Probably not. And you've also got this Dawnbreaker that is just going to run at you over and over and over again. I don't know, this was not the, I think, more free pick that I was expecting for Scourge to play, but that's where maybe he turns me into a believer. They've got a whole lot of anti-armor now. Really, the SF with his aura is going to make Nick feel that much stronger, which is something nice to say. But honestly, I feel like we're already going to see maybe Nico, instead of turning around his build, go for items like the Witchblade and the BKB, just so he can be almost a secondary right clicker. Because I am a little bit concerned with what Scourge is going to or not going to be able to do for his team. And then you look over at Felt, who have air quotes a perfect lineup. They've got Roche capabilities, they've got tower pushing, they've got a hard lineup, they've got great wave clear. I don't know. This is kind of another tall order for the cut to beat.
Well, I have to see just what the Scourge position 1 Shadow Fiend looks like, because it does feel like everything really is going to hinge on that, which it feels so strange now, right? We were talking about the draft before that Shadow Fiend pick, and it didn't really feel that way. So in one pick, they kind of narrowed down their options in terms of who is going to be the difference maker. And I mean, if it works, they're going to look like geniuses, right? But if it doesn't, we're going to look back on this draft and say, "Gee, why didn't they just go for something a little more standard?" You know?
Yeah, it's what we're kind of feeling like here, but okay.
What in the
The lag
blazes?
pause, because of course. But of course, it's always got to afflict us in some capacity, but hopefully we'll move past that pretty quickly once B-God gets in here. But yeah, could have a few things to answer for after this game. We'll see if I think this lineup can function, but it's going to be difficult. The one thing that I do still believe in, though, for them is that aside from that Ursa blinking in, there is still no good way for Felt to start a team fight. Honestly, first 20 minutes of this game. It's where I think the cut can kind of outmaneuver their opponents a little bit more and also outfarm their opponents a little bit more. It's one of the big benefits of Chen, where your 5 position can just kind of go off, do his own thing, get his 9-minute mech, and then eventually show up in a lane where he's not supposed to be, and then you bulldoze down 2 or 3 towers with your unkillable Chen army and Visage Birds. But we'll have to see if that's the type of game they're looking for, or if we will end up in more of
What
that
in the
farm-oriented
blazes?
gameplay that I think will probably benefit the Felt just a little bit more. And really, all I want to see is the Death Prophets ulti get punished. I feel like so many times today, Death Prophets have just been able to use the Exorcism. Oh, it's on CD, retreat to my side of the base, our side of the map, wait for it to be on CD, and then the opposing team just never seems to push that button hard enough.
Yep. Would very much appreciate though if the Death Prophet never throws out her laugh line again, because it's long and terrifying. So certainly do without that in life. But we continue to wait for B God here. He did attempt one reconnect. Apparently it didn't take. Still suffering from some lag. So he's gonna do it again. And Supernova, why you got to do this, man?
You see, maybe every pre-Dota game pause is just a bait. Maybe they're just trolling their entire Dota careers. I think of a few players that would probably probably do that.
Yeah, they're just
Just
sitting
delay the game.
in their team house. They're like, guys, they think we DC'd. It's like, no, we're just sitting here laughing. Although,
And here we
okay,
go.
third attempt, B God, it's again DCing. So don't think that's the case here. He might be having some actual.
Which is very unfortunate with how much of a playmaker he is typically for his team. And I do wonder how that lane is really going to turn out. I haven't gotten to see the Ursa versus Visage lane, just kind of something that you see a lot more in pubs and you get to see. It doesn't feel like a captain's mode lane, to be honest. It feels a little bit basic, but it's also where there's a dazzle in this game, which is very, very different. And didn't get to talk about it that much, but it's kind of an odd choice. It's in that same vein where it was so good at the major and especially leading up to qualifiers that you're like, well, this is just the best 5 in the game. You can't do anything. Look at Entity. They pick it and they just win whenever they play it. But then you get maybe a few nerfs here and there. You get your numbers tweaked down a little bit, and then all pros drop it for 2 months. And then
Hmm.
suddenly it's back at TI, and you're like, okay, what's happening?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a hero that can still pick up a Hex on Poison Touch pretty early in the game for a pretty affordable price. So the numbers may have been, yeah, like you said, sort of tweaked and made a little bit less impressive overall, but you're looking for someone who still has that harassment in lane, that heal factor in your team fights, and then locked down than maybe you would expect out of your position 4 or 5 support at the 15-minute mark, then still a very useful hero. And I think in this lane, there might be some potential to punish things up here as well, right? If B-God tries to get in there with that sort of primal spring harass that we've seen from other position 4 monkeys, then take a poison touch to the face, you get slowed up. The Ursa then gets to decide, do I want to try and pursue further damage or not? Because much easier to close the gap on the target that's already slowed.
Yeah. And it usually will be a pretty free kill. It's where I feel like for a lot of the laning stage, B-God's just going to tree dance, hop down, get the range creep, hop back up, mischief. Just make sure he doesn't get clipped by anything because he will be pretty dead to rights. It's also where I think lane gets much more dangerous once Paradise hits level 2 because I think it's very easy to maybe land that Earth Shock. It's where I think the high skill things happen. Just don't let the monkey dance and then suddenly you just have a free kill just right in front of you. But we will have to see, because Bigon still struggling here.
Yeah, haven't actually seen a reconnect attempt from him even for a minute or two now, which means at this point it might just be maybe like a full attempt, reboot the whole computer, reset the router, as opposed to just trying to reconnect in Dota itself. It's kind of spitballing at this point, doing some live troubleshooting on a machine that we have zero access to. Anybody in tech support probably knows that pain, but now we're starting to get a little curious from the other side. Felter wondering what's up, which, you know, fair enough. We've been paused for a little bit. Admin comes in to let us know there's 5 minutes left, and as he mentions pause time, here comes Pete God back into the server like he was summoned by the mention of the time. Is he good
Uh,
though?
Yeah, that's always the question. Doesn't matter if he's in the server.
Even if he's here, if it's still paused, it's still taking up time. So, fingers crossed. Do not want to even start thinking about what happens if they run out of time. Never the way that you want to see a game sort of determined. I think we had an issue like that last night, or I guess this morning, depending on what time zone you're in with the SEA ones, where they ended up having to reschedule some games because of some internet or power issues. So, on the one hand, there is flexibility there, right? You know, the admins aren't completely heartless, but if we could get the game underway and not have to worry about that at all, that's always the preferred outcome.
Yeah, and a preferred outcome that we're not getting. That's why the chat is getting spammed. The players, they're getting antsy. Nobody is happy. We'll have to see, because previously in the tournament, very kindly of the admins, they let and did allow for some last-minute stand-in substitutions with a remake, which hopefully doesn't happen here. It'd be nicer for the game to just start, but I'm sure worst-case scenario, guess you get B-God out of here, you get some random 4 position in NA back in, and then you see what happens, even though I feel like only B-God is really happy with playing the Monkey King. It's a 4 position that really, I think only he has played, at least in this tournament, but even on the wider scope of things, nobody's really given the Monkey another try, even though we've seen heroes like the 4 Doom come out from teams like Ravens, but that's because Doom is Doom. Doom just feels
Yeah.
good. The Monkey King, it's one of those heroes that takes just a little bit more finesse and it can definitely fall a lot harder.
Game was resumed. Be God doesn't appear to be still laboring under any extended ping or anything. So, okay. Crisis averted. We can get this final game underway and see how things play out here as both sides push towards mid. Ward went down first for Felt, so they saw Nico put his own ward up. Who's got the sentry? The Dazzle does. So they could drop that ward, of course. If they go for the D ward, that does reveal their own obs as well. But just be worth it to get your mid laner even the tiniest advantage in this matchup.
What in the blazes?
We'll see, because yet again, very defensive vision, especially to try and scout out the Warden, making that same rotation we saw in the previous game, which feels like it's much harder as well. Like, you've got an Invoker, you've got a Lina mid as well. I feel like that kill is a lot more difficult.
the runes. Supernova inching his way forward like he wants to contest it, but with the vision they have, they know they can't really afford it. Ingo and Nico would sort of win that trade straight up. So 2-2 split on the bounty runes, nothing out of the ordinary, and we'll see how this lane plays out down bot, because I don't know. I feel like the jury's still kind of out on Visage Monkey King in terms of how well it stacks up compared to some of the other pairings we've seen with the Visage, because the hero is incredibly strong. With the right off, or not offlaner, with the right position 4, it's just kind of broken, but is Monkey King the right one to go up against Ursa Dazzle, who are already going to try and punish him a little bit?
Yeah, and unfortunately, as the soul assumption does make the trade feel a little bit more even. Anytime he does get forced back like that, just means that you unfortunately can't play for those range creeps. Thankfully, first wave didn't get denied. Doesn't have to worry about that just yet, but that's where B God, I hope he has a sentry. He's got one queued up right now, but getting control of this large camp is actually going to be a pretty massive deal. That's where you can very easily bully Dazzle off of that large camp pull, and then suddenly your wave is super far back, and okay. The damage.
A little bit more than I think the Dazzle was waiting or ready for, but healing Salve, topping back up, but once these heroes hit level 2, you do not get away with that. You can't try that again. Boundless Strike will punish you. If there's a Grave Chill, then you're just dead to rights.
Nope, for sure. And again, they do still need to unblock that camp, but we'll see that in the next coming minutes.
See, still hasn't actually bought up that sentry yet, but got to assume it's going to happen eventually, as Paradise going to get hit up a little bit, but they do push their way forward onto Nick. There's that Boundless, though. That's going to lock 2 down. They turn around with the Soul Assumption, so the Dazzle now is no longer allowed to participate in this fight. He's got to back away. A second Soul... Second Soul Assumption's in there, down below 20 HP, but it wasn't enough, and now Paradise needed one more hit to get B-God, but he's not going to find that either. So both supports, CT, inches away from death, but they both survive by the skin of their teeth.
Incredibly low, but... Oh, they're running at Nick now.
Nick doesn't have mana for Soul Assumption, so he really can't punish this. It should just be First Blood. Okay.
Okay.
Takes him a while to, I guess, whittle away at it, but they do strike eventually, and that's First Blood into the Ursa's hands. That is not what the cut we're hoping to look for here. At this point, actually kind of wondering as well what Paradise's build is going to be. We saw the Battle Fury Ursa earlier today. See if that's the direction he wants to look in as well, although considering the cores on the other side, as the Dazzle is going to kill himself off, does he have to look for the Battle Fury? Did the Shadow Fiend and the Invoker really sort of outpace him that much, or could he get away with something different?
It's hard to say, and of course, every Ursa is just a little bit different, but I think that's also where Battle Fury is just the meta. Diffusal Ursa is something that I haven't seen in a very long time, and even though he does have the phase boots queued up, I think earlier whenever Stonebank was playing, and he just likes treads because treads make you farm just a little bit faster. This is a pretty easy lane though, and with that, and the Dazzle's Deny, gets the TP back to the Visage lane with a raindrop, so effectively, Paradise is no longer ever going to be in danger in this lane. It's just the Dazzle.
Should be just fine. Meanwhile, let's take a look over at some of the other lanes here. Starting mid, we got Solji and Nico fighting for last hits. That's a fight the Lina has been winning so far, and not by a narrow margin either. So Solji's been kind of playing up a little bit, and Nico in a position here where he wasn't forced into the exort damage, but these spells are still expensive. So if you're not going to hit a full combo onto the Lina, as we see here, he's kind of going to hold his fire.
Yeah, and it's where I think once you hit level 6, then your lane really gets difficult, but oh, mid.
Take down Scourge in the top lane. Meanwhile, back mid, as you say, Solji is dangerously low and will be taken down, so... Okay. B-God rotation comes in, and if you're Nico, I said, you know, maybe you hold your fire if you can't hit a full combo. If the Monkey King's going to come in to kind of act as the training wheels there, then fire away. They find the kill. The only problem is the cost up top, as Scourge did get taken down.
Yeah, and we'll see. Right now, Pingu is still struggling to find a creep. He does have a Frost Armor creep, which is pretty nice once he's got the levels to take it up, but that's where this lane is a very easy kill for Felt. anytime Scourge is just a little bit too far forward. Not to mention, you're playing SF where you're pretty strapped for mana. He's got the range up in the Basilius, which will make his life just a little bit easier, but that's where this hero without bottle, I don't know. It just doesn't feel the same. He will get a huge uptick in damage once he hits level 5, but aside from that, he also just has not a killer in his 5 position. His support being Chen just means that even though this Frost Armor is nice, and it clearly is nice, you don't have somebody that's laying you up for your triple raise combo. It's not like a CM with Frostbite.
Yeah, the best Pingu could do is either grabbing a creep that could do it or taking penitence, but that slow is just not great until it's basically max. And if you're maxing penitence 5 minutes in, then some other weird stuff's going on as the warden. I think he might have been looking somewhere else, because he just straight up walked past the Chen, didn't care, got up onto the high ground, and then kind of turned around. But now in the middle lane, here comes another attempt onto Solji. Both the supports in this time as the Boundless Strike will connect. Heal from Dazzle, though. Buying some time. He doesn't have Grave, however, so Solji still needs to retreat. But he does manage to make it away.
No, but pretty nice attempt on the Lena's life. Warden is forced to claim the regen rune, so now Solji is kind of sad with where he stands. He's probably going to have to go all the way back to the base without boots. It's a long trip. Not something you're too happy about. And whenever you make these super heavy support rotations, you put Visage in the 1v1, which we know that Visage wants. And you also get that SF versus DP matchup where, sure, it's not in the mid lane, but Supernova certainly can't tank 2 raises. The only reason that Scourge should be scared is because of Warden. And well, Warden's here, but
I mean, we're gonna give it a go. Starbreaker hits. Crypt Swarm hits. Can they keep the dive going, though? They're gonna give it a try, but here comes the TP in. Meanwhile, B-God does finally get caught out in that south side jungle, so they do manage to punish him, but we're gonna keep eyes top where Nico and Pingu have arrived. Not really able to track down much onto Supernova, but they do combine forces for the kill onto the Dawnbreaker, so at the end of the day, that's a convoluted support trade, but it is just a trade all the same.
yeah, and in typical cut fashion, they're just trying to use XP as wisely as they can. So Nico leaves mid, so suddenly your Monkey King is there just to try and sap, and then the soldier just kills him because Laguna Blade is a lot of damage that Monkey can't necessarily survive reliably. But that's where I still have questions as to whether or not this SF is going to really start to come online any sooner than this Ursa would. And Ursa is just going for the Battle Fury build, so whether or not he gets that timing, probably 14, 15-minute Battle Fury, he'll be pretty happy with it. But it's also where right now, Nick is unable to lane. He's looking for his level 6, and he can't really walk up right now.
They just run right at him. Paradise, okay, he just popped the Enrage, so they really are going to give this a go, but with the TPs coming, yeah, it's time to back out. Scourge, can he get the full raise combo in? Well, he can't, but a tower shot actually does the final hit for him, and all things considered, I think that works out pretty damn well for them. Nick avoids the aggression. They split a kill. Looked like over in the middle lane they were trying to set up onto Solji as well to try and sort of compound that, but Lena did not push far enough forward to get caught, although now Boundless will hit. EMP is there. Cold Snap in as well, but the defensive TPs are moving. The Dazzle has arrived. Is his heal going to be enough? I don't think so. The Tornado comes through for the kill. And now the Warden, as a position 4 support, doesn't actually have the damage to finish off even a return kill onto Pingu.
Yeah, just really nicely timed. For a second there, I thought Solji wasn't missing enough mana to actually die to that EMP, but with the right clicks, they just make it happen. And even though during all that time, Supernova did just use his Exo to get that tower top, I feel like satisfaction-wise, the Cut are still pretty happy with what's going on here. Nick also, of course, got a 6 from before and continuing to put the pain onto this map.
Let's get the job done. So they'll find that kill. B-God is going to pay for this, though. There's just no way that he actually gets out, as Paradise will find the trade, and it's going to make this a little bit better. But now, if you're the Warden, you're caught in no man's land. In between 2 cores, they will be able to clean him up as well.
No, pretty nice for Nick. Almost has his lads. And of course, see about that Wraith Pack timing. But despite everything and a lot of early kills here, everybody is hitting their numbers, though. We've got pretty sick just timings across the board here. I think coming up on those Boots of Travel for the Lena, Battle Fury is really the only one kind of slowing down because Paradise has just been running around chasing heroes as opposed to just farming, but kind of makes sense. As Ursa, you do want to try and deny maybe just a little bit of farm to your opponents, but I don't know. With the map in such gridlock, the only thing you can really do to bust it open is use this next Exo, but unfortunately, breaking it onto this mid tower, it's really obnoxious to ever go mid versus this team. It's just EMP, Tornado, raises, getting pestered by the Visage. It's just not fun.
They try for about a half a second to get onto Nick, but the immediate stone form from the familiars kind of shuts that down. But now if you're Nick, well, you know that there's someone else here. They see the Dazzle as well, actually, so it's not that sneaky. So if you're the Visage, do you still stick around, though? Because there is a rotation coming in. The Warden is trying to sneak his way around this. I'm not really sure if this would be enough damage, all things considered. I mean, the Vlad's has been picked up by Nick, so he's a little bit tougher to bring down. Of course, the Chen doesn't have Hand of God yet, so there is no sort of bailout play on the heal. But they still need someone to make the initiation.
Yeah, and without that, and of course, that is the issue. Got great damage, you've got a lot of damage, but unless you give up that positional mistake, and Nick, he feels it. He knows that something's happening here. He knows that if he walks up just a little bit too far, all it takes is 2 slows and then I'm dead, but it doesn't work.
I think now Nick has a potential to maybe even just bait this, because his teammates are coming in off the smoke.
Ooh.
Oh, Nico popped. Can he hit?
Oh, he popped in a really bad way as well.
You burn the mana, I guess, but yeah, there just really wasn't any play to be made after he pops in that location. But while that goes down, there is that Supernova Exo, and that's a nice little clip on the stun. Scourge is dropped low, but there's the Hand of God. He was able to hit 6. Might just be enough to keep the Shadow Fiend alive. Scourge is getting hit by the Ghost, but he's making it away. At the same time, though, Nico is here. B-God comes in, but I still don't think this is really a fight that they should take. Over in the bottom lane, though, oh, we're actually seeing multiple fights. B-God falls mid, bottom lane, Pingu gets picked off, and this is starting to look a little bit rough as these engagements both kind of turn against the cut. I mean, at the end of the day, ET, Shadow Fiend lives. That's good, but 2 supports and a tier 1 tower taken, and at this point, I don't think Nick is going to be able to finish off Paradise either. No. And now Nick needs to be careful. Here comes the rotation. They're moving in. Do spot him out, isolating him from his own familiars. This is not looking good. Starbreaker is going to hit him up. They need a little bit more in the way of slow and vision for that matter, but eventually they will run him down. So the final tally across those 2 lanes is 3 kills and a tier 1 tower, and did they lose anyone in that? I don't think they actually did.
No, there was maybe a slight turn on the mid lane, but aside from that, it was just pretty much them running over their opponents. I feel bad for Nick. It felt so cool having him in the Chen army just kind of chilling down there, doing what they can, but it's also a case where I think you have that Wraith Pact, and that dive feels so much easier and so less turnable for Felt, but it doesn't end up working out. You lose your mid-tier 1 as well with that Exorcism. It feels like, yet again, Felt are just kind of playing a perfect game with this DP, even though Supernova now, they need the Tornado, but it's more or less blind, and Dazzle's already making ways up here.
Old Snap Ice Wall combo coming in. The Dazzle has arrived. He's trying to hold the grave as long as he can. Actually just got stunned up, so at this point he might just actually die to the Tornado. Yeah. Supernova's still not free and clear yet, but look at Paradise. Waiting to see if there's an opening, but Cut won't chase any further, and all things considered, well, if you're the Dazzle, your plan was to get in there and make sure Supernova got away safely. Technically speaking, you did accomplish that. Cost him his life instead of a grave, but Supernova's not dead.
Yeah, I feel like you're 100% satisfied with that, as well as now you're starting to abuse your Dawnbreaker a little bit more. You have Warden just anchoring down this bottom lane. Anytime a big fight's going to break out, he just ults away, keeps that pressure on those creep waves. But it's also almost Exo time again. I feel like this is the awkward stage, though, where you'd really like to get level 2 Exo before you pop it again, even though you might be forced to use it. But Supernova also almost has a BKB, just outright. So he is 100% battle ready. He is going to look for those big team fights coming forward here. Does need an armor item pretty badly. It's where you can get kind of torn apart by the presence of the Dark Lord and the Visage Birds still. But aside from that, he's still owning it.
Progression is quite nice. It's not quite the top, looking at the net worth here, but I mean, this is an off-lane DP. We're sort of used to seeing her starting to drop a little bit lower in that net worth chart by this point in the game, and that's not happening yet. So definitely something that Feld appreciate. Now they're looking to try and stop this Roche attempt. They did scan it out, but they're going to have to go quickly because Roche is already dropping. Supernova, though, does he want to go in without the BKB? He's going to give it a go. The Requiem was channeled out by Scourge, so they're not into the pit just yet. They did manage to take down Pingu, though. But Supernova's going to fall in exchange, and this fight's just getting too complicated. They have to back out, but the Lina dropped low. Solji going to get saved for now, but he's going to get stunned up, so that is not going to work out for him. The Grave wears off. And it's full retreat time. They need to get the hell out of Dodge. Paradise is going to try to make it away, and I think he'll be fine, but the supports are still being tracked. Nice cut down on the tree, but the Warden now needs to make sure he gets away as well. He will do so.
Yeah, and they'll refocus on the building, but what bird stuns from Nick? Oh my god. 2 3-man stuns for those Sens, and, well, you got the Roche. You unfortunately just sucked Supernova out so far into that fight by himself, and even though it's first Roche, it's just first Roche. I think forcing yourself into what is an almost unwinnable position for your DP when you have BKB this close, I don't know, just seems like feeling like they could have done more with their lead. And it's continuing to be a fight that I don't know if they want.
Grave comes out again. The Warden still alive for the time being, but there's those familiars into Sunstrike. Eco's able to pick up... Let's not say it's an easy kill, because that was still 4 heroes having to track it down, but pretty straightforward one. The tier 1 tower falls, and yeah, ET, I think this is really what you were saying. You hit the nail on the head. That first Roche was just the first Roche, but since they went so hard to try and contest it, it has become more valuable, right? They were able to push mid. They were able to take tower. Scourge feels way more confident now, not just because of the 2 lives, but because of the gold that fight gave him.
Yeah, and now for Felt, you're going to run into this double BKB timing where you're going to want to make a play, but they can't really make a play until the Ursa has his Blink Dagger. So that's going to be their big move, so that way they can actually get onto anybody, again with the Dawnbreaker. But then, look top, Supernova, Vigot's coming. They're going to run out of damage pretty soon here, but this is close. The suck.
Well, Supernova had been playing, maybe not quite a perfect game, but a pretty damn good one, and then back-to-back deaths are really kind of hindering that progress and dropping him back down that net worth chart. So this is the danger. If you're Felt, you're in really awkward territory right now. You lost the Roche fight. That sucks, but you can't exacerbate the problem. If heroes get caught out that far like this, like perhaps Solji is right now, as Nick has eyes on him, but he's going to take out the creep instead. Solji's a little too fast there, so he does manage to get away. But plays like that, where a hero's dangling just that little bit too far forward, you can still get punished pretty severely.
Yeah, now pressure onto the tier 2. Uncontestable pressure. You're just seeing them push in, and there's not too much you can do here. If this is mech, this is drums, this is Wraith Pact, it's that 5 death ball lineup where you're starting to get a little bit concerned here for Felt as they lose more and more of the map. And as we typically see in lineups where you have that true tri-core, and Felt have a tri-core, the less real estate you have, the more one of your cores starts to suffer. I think right now they are just pumping everything into the Ursa, which means that this BKB on Supernova that was only a few hundred gold away is still not completed. Very concerning. And Solji, no BKB either, and Orchid comes out.
That is an Orchid from B-God, by the way, on the Monkey King, so... Well, not exactly the hero you expected to be hitting you up with that kind of lockdown, as Solji is still on the run, but the problem is, Nico had the Vessel on him, so even once the Grave ended, they needed to be healing him. Just weren't.
Yeah, no worse feeling than that. You finish your BKB in the fountain with just the gold you had saved up. Just does not feel right, and, well, hey, that's Glyph on not your first tier 2 tower. This means that tier 3s could be the next threat for the cut.
Here comes the jump. Supernova in trouble. They get him with the silence. They get him with the Vessel. There's going to be the Grave and the BKB, though. Does he actually pop the Exo? He's not going to pull the trigger on that, which is probably in his best interest. That was not going to turn into a fight with the Ursa all the way up in the north side jungle. The problem is, they still lose the tower. They couldn't protect it, and now, as you say, ET, that didn't bring your Glyph back. So now, there's still so much of a threat to get pushed down across some of these other lanes.
Yeah, they've got to really tread lightly here next 4 or 5 minutes. And they've got BKB on Lina, so Solji can maybe feel a little bit more confident in their engagement. But I feel what's even more likely is we just have to wait for Paradise's BKB before we can actually get one of those huge messy team fights going. And this is where it is it's just so annoying. You just don't have a blink stun. Nobody on your team can fulfill this initiation role. And even once you have that blink on the Ursa, you feel like Paradise might as well just pick up a pair of dust right now. Because if they ever want to kill Invoker with the Dawnbreaker ulti, well, that's exactly what you need. You need to be able to stick on that hero. Otherwise, you just get tornadoed and walked away from. And even though the Aegis will finally time out here, it's going to be a BKB to slot in. So Scourge is going to be battle ready yet again.
That smoke ends up popping. They just get a little too close to B-God, so they're not going to really have the element of surprise. And look at the cut. Starting to bring their heroes over here, recognizing if we can maybe bait them a little bit further in. No. Not quite going to be able to pull that off. And honestly, taking the tower probably more valuable in the immediate sort of short term.
And now, looking across the board, some of these items, you really do need this BKB on the Ursa now, especially with the threat of the Orchid just kind of looming over you. Can't really afford to just not get your ability off. And I'm amazed that Felt feel this confident to be so far out in the top lane. They just straight up don't have their Death Prophet, and they feel like they can walk up and out past where their tier 1 just got claimed. But with that being said, BKB on SF now finished.
Yep. Finish the BKB. They smoke his 5, and they are going on the hunt. They've got the Chen creeps. Got the momentum. Just need a target. Who can they find? Dazzle's close, but that's not really worth the effort. Same can be said for the Warden off to the west there, so... Search continues as they move their way into the jungle. If they actually wrap around, they might hit up on Solji, but they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to close the gap on Paradise either, and might just end up being a bust.
Yeah. You're going to have to refocus on the lanes in some capacity now. You guys actually looking towards top to try and find a kill. He knows that the Warden is going to want to ult to a fight, so the Orchid is actually just the perfect way for him to spoil an engagement that could actually end up spilling out here, but we'll see, because right now they're just kind of tiptoeing next to each other. But during all this time, Ursa gets closer towards his BKB. We'll have to see what the Roche timer looks like, but that's where this game is going to redirect.
45 seconds for the fastest possible respawn, and well, I'm not really sure if a faster respawn like that benefits one team more than the other, because they're both positioning already in a sort of spot to try and contest it, but we'll have to wait and see just what that timer says. In the meantime, Nico makes his way top, just trying to farm up. He could buy out, yeah, there it is. Could buy out his BKB there, does pretty much take up all of the money that he has, but if there's a Roche attempt on the horizon and a fight that could potentially break out around that pit, he does need that magic immunity.
Yeah, and well, here we go. Let's see what this Roche is going to hold for us. We've already got the cut hovering around this area. Felt do have some pretty nice wards to kind of scout out here. And it won't be the slowest Roche, but a Roche that I think timing-wise will favor Felt pretty heavily here. This gives you just about enough time for your Ursa to get his BKB before they look for that next engagement. But the cut, they're just smoking straight up. They're just going for it instead. They just got the shard on that Visage as well, so he is really just not going to die to anything, aside from maybe a silence coming from the Death Prophet, but... Oh, that's everyone. They're going to see the Invoker first.
There's going to be the Boundless Strike. They need to just take somebody down. They haven't been able to do so yet. Look at Supernova just charge his way in. There's the Solar Guardian as well. They've locked down B-God, and they will kill him off. So there's your first casualty, but now they need to be careful. Solji losing a lot of HP. He's going to lose the magic immunity in a few moments as well, but there's the Grave to keep him alive. He actually throws out the Laguna Blade onto Nico, so they finish off that kill onto the Invoker. This has gone remarkably well so far for the side of Felt, and Scourge, he's trying to channel out the ult. Does he get it off? No, he's going to get silenced instead. They're trying to lock him down. Here comes the damage, but the familiar stuns will be there. It's just not enough. Scourge still dies. Death Requiem doesn't finish anyone. And the cut. I mean, ET, they went looking for a fight. They sure as hell found one, but not the fight that they wanted. And now, 15 seconds away from Roche, I mean, they've got an Ursa. Felt could just push in here and take this.
Yeah, now the only thing they have to do is just check it in 5 seconds. That's where you get that immediate punish, but yeah, just very slow to get that high ground ward placed up on the cut side. Bigod ended up just dying before he could really cast anything, and oh no. Okay,
There
there we
we go.
go. They see it, immediately blinks over on Paradise, and that was a fight where the Ursa didn't have his beacon.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Solji, I think Solji might have been out of that. Yeah, and he's gonna acknowledge that.
Oh, they're coming.
He could have stepped in and saved his teammate, but Nico, yeah, he's gonna force the fight. Is this a good idea? I don't know, but they feel the desperation. They can't let Paradise just finish this off. They have to get into the pit, but they can't do it. Paradise grabs the Aegis, grabs the shard, walks away. Can he actually get out, though? Familiar stun 1 coming in. Stun 2 connecting as well. The Dazzle is the easier target, but he's not the one that they want. They need to be able to take down this Ursa. They're throwing everything they've got at him other than a slow or a stun, so he's still walking.
Oh,
He is going to make
barely
it.
able. That's incredibly nice. That was a really early BKB just to be 100% certain on Paradise, just to make sure that he wasn't going to get stunned in the pit. But, oh, that was close, but it works out. Really nice high ground word as well, just to see B-God. He actually got his tree cut by the Battle Fury. Otherwise, I think maybe the Monkey King actually just ends up killing the Ursa. And he 100% doesn't get out of there as well, unless he picks up that Ag Shard. So, good stuff from Paradise. Oh, keeping this game close.
Yeah, it's you get the feeling it shouldn't be that close. Both sides have taken their shot at sort of pulling away, but either one was really able to capitalize fully, so here we are. Separated by a couple hundred net worth, and with the Aegis in hand, you feel like the Felt have a little bit of an advantage in these fights, but not if they lose Supernova here. Sunstrike comes through, Supernova TP not going to complete. And that's not quite a death that they could afford, especially considering, yeah, Supernova was closing in on finishing his Shiva's guard, so that's going to get slowed up a little bit. And you mentioned earlier sort of a lack of some armor items, really on multiple heroes, but the Death Prophet in particular, close to getting one, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, and that's where, looking back over to Scourge, got the level 15 talent. I think the talent that they were looking to press the issue on, I think that's why he ended up taking the Tome, the 20-minute Tome, if I remember correctly. But he also has that Ag Shard queued up, and just finished a Hurricane Pike. So now, maybe feeling a little bit more confident at his ability to kite and survive what, again, is the only play that the Felt have to start a fight. It's just blinking on the Ursa, chain stunning in with that Solar Guardian, and then hoping for the best. But that's also where Felt, 3 heroes outside of the base, might be time to come back here. Your buildings will have that negative armor on you.
They brought
See,
one
I
back.
don't think Scourge can hit the high ground here, but the birds certainly can, and well, that's why. Ooh.
Okay. They're quick to get on those familiars. They take both of them out, and yeah, as you say, Scourge is not tanky enough or survivable, aegisable, whatever the phrase would be, to just stand there and hit onto those buildings. So really don't get any damage. And now Paradise is on the hunt. They're going to try and hit up Pingu. Gotta make sure you don't go too far, though. There's going to be the stun. The Requiem comes out as well. Fear hitting onto 3 or 4 inside of a Wukong's command. So there is a little bit more damage coming out from B-God, but not a lot. The Paradise continues to march his way forward. Getting onto B-God first. They'll take him down. Grave now coming out to make sure the Ursa doesn't die. Although at this point, since he still has the Aegis, yeah, he's coming right back up. But he's coming right back up directly in the middle of 2 or 3 heroes, but he's able to blink himself away. Grabs the Invis Rune. Meanwhile, to the south, bit of a problem for Supernova here. He's going to get hit up by the Meteor. The DOT is taking him down, but he's still trying to get close enough to someone to do some damage, but he will end up going down. And it feels like the cut, they've just started to run out of steam here. Nick is desperately trying to get away. Can he make it out? No, not even a little bit. Paradise says, you're not going anywhere, as the bear picks up a triple kill. And Felt did not do that cleanly, but they did it, and that's what matters. The Aegis gets used to great effect, and they have a chance now, ET, to push their way onto some objectives.
Yeah, and yet again from the cut, they just drag themselves a little bit too close to that high ground vision. They can't fight for the hill, I think, nearly as nicely as Felt were able. And then Paradise, even though he's bouncing between targets with that 15 talent, the 15 talent that honestly kind of broke the game for that hero. You just apply that Earth Shock to so many different units. It really doesn't matter who you end up on, because everybody just dies. I think maybe if the cut were able to orchestrate a team fight where they could save the Requiem for the Aegis respawn, that looks a little bit better, but they just used so much on the first life, and they weren't able to change targets either. They had to focus on either the DP or the Lina, but the Ursa was just way too far in their faces. And now, you don't really have that many items next in queue either. I think this is where the cut might just have to say, okay, guys, we need to farm. We don't have any items compared to our opponents who have some odd items. There's a full AC on the Lina, but it kind of makes sense, especially with the last pick SF, I guess, just being the counter of having -7 armor, but still kind of funny.
Got the AC. Now he's going to go for the Satanic, so it is, you know, the Lina right-click build, just not quite the same one that we're used to seeing, but as you said, going against that presence of the Dark Lord, things like the AC, things like the Shivas, you know, picking those up take on a little bit extra importance, and we saw in that fight, right? They get hit up by 4-man Requiem, hitting the fear onto him, and the damage that came out while they were feared wasn't really enough to deter them from pushing forward into the second half of that fight as okay. The Warden says, I'm done with this. Done dealing with the Monkey King. He just ults on top of himself to find that kill, and B-God gets taken down.
See you later, Bigon. Kind of sad. Monkey King just gets splatted, but oh, look at this.
Oh boy, Solji.
Solji, you might need to use your BKB, but no. They get scared. They get cold feet. So just a free D ward. And something that I noticed a while ago, but they bought this gem maybe 15 minutes into the game on the Dazzle, and then have just been swapping it around. But because the cut have not won a fight since, it just hasn't worked. And oh, Nick.
He did a fantastic job trying to dance around Paradise initially, but at a certain point, the Ursa just kept chasing. They find the kill. They do lose the Dazzle in exchange, but they're going to be able to take down Pingu. That makes it a 2-for-1, maybe a 3-for-1, because Paradise is in, and that's unfortunate. Bash, actually, that was just Abyssal Blade onto Nico, but he's still making it out. He blinks just as the Earthshock was going to connect with him, so Nico is out. His teammate, though, his teammate set up quite nicely. I thought for a second Scourge was in trouble, but he and B-God set up with the Requiem play, and they take the Lina down. So instead of a 3-for-1, it's a 2-for-2, and the cut, swing that their way. Some much-needed gold for the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, Solji was just kind of playing footsie whether or not to pop his BKB versus the Requiem, and then B-God comes in with a Boundless Strike, and a fantastic Hurricane Pike from Scourge just ended up setting him up in the perfect spot to make that Requiem actually happen. But no, it's another one of those odd games that just starts to drag a little bit, mainly because the Exorcism hasn't been cast in a good little while here. Supernova hasn't been able to get onto a building very cleanly either. And even though the Ursa is willing to do it all, blink in, start the fight, initiate Abyssal anyone, the Lina can't just hit buildings either. So nobody can push down buildings until the other team's dead. So we're in that kind of stalemate where you need that Aegis to break things down. In 20 seconds, we'll figure out about Roche, but it's the kind of game we're in.
Dude, nobody gave B-God the heads up that he's playing position 4. He got the Orchid for himself earlier on. He's now having the Diffusal Blade brought out to him, so he's just turning into... Initially, it was looked at as maybe just utility, but now it's legitimate damage that the Monkey King can deal.
No, B-God's getting very scary, and honestly, Scotty feels like a fantastic item for Scourge as well if he's somehow able to get it. I feel like that's where we could see that race play out here as B-God. Oh, he's jumping.
Able to get away. Well, kind of. He's not stunned up immediately, so he is going to survive. And Solji, gotta pop that BKB. He did take a little bit of damage at the start, but he's still standing on the front line. Is there any actual play to be made here? Paradise blinked in. Didn't go for the Abyssal Stun. Now he might be in trouble. The Force Staffs are going to be able to push him back, but Supernova has to activate his own BKB. The problem is he popped Exo and then had to run. That's so unfortunate if you're Fel.
Yeah, and look, immediate smoke up. They know the Lina doesn't have BKB. She is going to be priority number 1. DD as well. Oh, look at the high ground. See how they break.
Pingu leading the charge. Silence comes in, but oh my god, Supernova dropping low. The Warden, though, trying to ult his way in here, looking to help out. It is going to be successful. And Scourge, he's actually the one dropping. Can they save him? He needs to be able to get out here. As the Hand of God actually heals him up quite nicely. He's going to try and stand his ground, but against the Ursa, he doesn't win. Scourge is dead. B-God taken out by the Laguna. And the cut. Now they have to run. Nick trying to get away with that Ogre Seal. Looks goofy as hell, but it gets him out of trouble, so he's going to be okay with it. But now if you're the cut, well, this isn't enough. The heroes that they have up right now, really, I don't think could contest this, so they should be another Roche to felt.
Yeah, and they just fight into the last 10 seconds of Exorcism because they want to press the issue and put pressure on that Lena, but they end up trapping themselves versus the Ursa, and we've seen a bunch of refresher shards all day today, but now you got a free Ags that you can just give to your Ursa. I mean, Paradise is just in a position to win this game for his team. There's not a lot now that you could do on the cut. Simply, there's no other core that feels strong enough to contest him. It's where you look over at Nico and his Invoker and say, well, does he have a Hex? Are we going to kill him with the Tornado? Is that the way we get back into this game? Well, nope, not anymore. He doesn't even have those types of items queued up. And then you take a look at the SF, and Scourge is just falling off the face of the earth. It just doesn't feel like he has enough impactful items compared to Paradise, who is just doing everything for his team.
This is the problem right now. The way that both the Shadow Fiend and the Invoker builds, right? They've got some utility, they've got some extra durability, but right now, what the cut need is someone who can just punch a hole through a human being, basically, and they don't have it. The damage won't be there, and now Paradise is all but unkillable.
No, it's not fun. It's not easy to play around either, and the one silver lining is that the man with 32,000 net worth isn't a great tower pusher, but Pingu, are you just the food? Seems like it.
Ghost Scepter buys him some time, but he just gets to die a couple seconds later. But all the heroes to go down, that's probably one that you're going to be relatively okay with. You do end up losing his creep. It's a bit more of a bummer, but a hero on probably, I think, the shortest death timer you were going to have in that scenario. And what is this? Solji? He's been spotted. Oh, they just missed Boundless. That's kind of awkward. Solji's just going to fight his way through this. There's the Laguna. There's the kill. And they whiffed it.
Yep, just kind of botched individual play there. And there are two waves pushing in right now. Uh-oh.
I mean, listen, if the Boundless Strike hits, you know, the Invoker can drop the entirety of his combo down there and, you know, maybe you get that kill. But without the Boundless to set it up, that was just free reign for Solji to just hack his way through everyone. And now, well, now we come back to the point you've made repeatedly, ET, because it still is true. Paradise doesn't exactly push down towers, but here comes the battering ram in the form of Supernova. Exo active, they're going to push their way through. That forces out the Glyph. So the cut, trying to buy time. Only 30 seconds away from the Invoker, although the Invoker has buyback if they wanted to force a fight, but force a fight into what? Into Aegis? Into Cheese on Death Prophet? That's not really a fight that I think they could take confidently.
No, and there's the Glyph. I feel like at the very least it's two lanes here. Two lanes extremely cleanly. Death Prophet might decide to back out just a little bit once that Exo is gone, but they're smoked up right now. They need to find that Lena BKB super early on. There's not even a BKB for another 5 seconds, but they also need to look for the Dazzle, and they've got him.
Okay, they blow him up right away, but look at this. Scourge is in trouble. Abyssal Blade stunned. Someone's got to help him. There's going to be a bit of a force staff to try and get him away, and he's not dead yet. Nico, wow. Blinks in. Tornado well placed. They get away with that. They take down the Dazzle, who had to buy back, but you spend so much time with that wraparound. Mid was taken in its entirety. Top lost the tower and the melee, so hooray, you have killed a Dazzle, but he bought right back and you lost half your base.
Yeah, and even though you do have to TP back, this is a timing where the Lena is not able to help your team fight right now, worst case scenario, but really nothing was forced out of you. If you're felt, you have all of your BKBs, you don't have your Dawnbreaker ulti for another 20 seconds, but your Dazzle bought back to keep this pressure up. The one thing that you will lose in a minute here is the Aegis, but look mid.
Oh, Nico. He cannot afford to die here. He's in some serious trouble. They're going to be able to take him down, and the first time he died, he had buyback, but he was able to respawn naturally, so he spent the money that he had, and now he's priced out.
60 seconds now where they can just go up very peacefully, push down this tier 2 tower.
There is nothing peaceful about what's about to happen. They are just going to push their way through. Tier 2. Okay, they're not exactly melting through it instantly, but No
EXO
one's
and
gonna
10.
stop.
It's just all lined up. This push, there's no glyph. Everything's gonna die so quickly. Scotty on the Lena as well. And Scourge gets scouted.
What? Oh my god, they spotted him. They're stunning him. They're killing him.
And that, he's
Ugh.
got buyback, but he doesn't have souls. The classic problem with Shadow Fiend. And I feel like that might just be it.
And he's got to buy back. Otherwise, they might as well call it if they're not gonna fight it. Tier 4s are falling. The Aegis is going to get reclaimed, but at this point, there's the buyback. Scourge will rejoin. The problem is his teammates already getting pushed back towards the fountain. Pengu had to retreat. The Warden, well, he throws out his ult, but before he can actually really do much of anything with it, kind of feels like the fight's already over. Scourge gets bashed up. Ult didn't do much good, and that really should be the end of it. B-God is going to pop his buyback, but it feels like it's just too late. Solji cleans up a kill with the Laguna. Somebody actually needs to hit the Ancient, though. Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? No, okay, we're just going to go for kills. Why not? Let's pad the stats a little bit while we have the chance. Paradise pushes his way in. Not actually catching up to anyone, though. This is one of the strangest endings to a game. The Cut aren't going to call GG, but they can't really hold this all that well either. Although B-God is giving it a go. He wants the kill onto Solji. He's not going to get it, though. Laguna to the face will finish him off. And eventually, Ursa remembers, oh, right. Yeah, the Ancient. Forgot about that.
Ooh, does he die in a fountain? No, they don't even want to attempt it because the Cut are just not doing it. And there you go.
Okay, Solji lives. GG called, and this is finally going to come to an end. But if you felt, you know, you could afford to do that, right? Because that was basically just a win that they had well in hand. You can afford to get a little clowny at the end of it.
Yeah, and I think really takeaways here is Felton Death Prophet. You gotta look out. I don't think that you can necessarily give this hero to this team whenever they have first pick. And of course, the only reason that ends up going that way is because they haven't valued Primal Beast just yet. But then the Cut don't take it either. I feel like they go for this Visage opener, and maybe the Visage feels good, but I don't know if I'm down for the Monkey King. I don't think it ended up being nearly as effective as they wanted to, but I don't know. This was an incredibly important series for the Felt, and especially for them. I think moving away from five-man Midas, just getting a 2-0 right now, really puts them in quite the safe spot. You do not want to be that last team that just doesn't go to group stages where only one team gets eliminated. And I think right now, okay, sure, you don't get to take your lead. You don't get to match up to Ravens just yet here. But Felt moving up from that bottom, I think they're really in a much safer spot now.
The way that we've seen some of these squads like before this 2-0, Felt and No Runes and 5-Man Midas play, the struggles that they had been dealing with, 1 to 2 points could be the difference between 8th and 9th, as you say, and that is the only spot that gets eliminated. So getting this 2-0 is already huge for Felt, and it's not just that these points could make the difference for them. It's the fact that they went into a matchup against the Cut, who we were looking at as one of the 2 or 3 best teams so far through the first couple of days, and they just smashed their way through them.
Yeah, and I know I feel like again, I just keep saying it, and I'll say it forever. The Cut, they get sick of their own Dota. It feels like they look super great in the beginning of a tournament, and then they just fall off the face of a cliff. Even though they've got heroes that they've played previously, they've got a lineup that should feel nice in both games as well. KDA wise, the Cut don't look bad in the slightest. It's just I think not having some of that razor tight positioning or decision making coming in. I mean, if this game plays out any differently for those first or second Roches, I feel like the Cut just kind of blew up those team fights in their faces and then just easily end up throwing versus the Ursa. But that's where I think the Cut, it's time for a team talk. It's where Scourge sits everybody down and then, you know, beat some cheeks. But then eventually they come back and look just as good because, yeah, they were the hottest team. They were probably the only team that looked quite as good as Ravens, but we'll have to see because this was definitely a whooping.
Just a loss of focus that they really can't afford. And as you say, at that point, you got to sit the team down and tell them, like, guys, listen, we're too good to lose games in the way that we're losing some of these. So see what that adjustment is. Speaking of adjustments, though, I do want to swing us on over to the other screen because we do have those group stage standings to show you. That's on your screen right now because we were talking about them pretty significantly. Might as well give you a look at what's going down. So with that 2-0 victory, the Felt side do move up a little bit. What, 2 whole places? So They are relatively safe for right now. Meanwhile, you see Five-Man Midas down at the bottom at 0-6. So, as we were saying, realistically speaking, still over half the schedule to play, but between Felt, No Runes, and Five-Man, a 1-1 here, what 1-2-0 sweep like what Felt have gotten might just be enough to make you safe, which trying to express that without necessarily being too down on those teams, but it is just the nature of their performance so far.
Yeah, you can't be too flamey, you know? It's fun to be flamey, but, that's where we do have a lot of Dota. There's a lot more of the group stage to be played, and maybe 5 Men might just make a comeback. Maybe they swap out some more players. I don't know. We'll have to see what that team holds for us. But here, though, again, felt looked great.
Looked great. We'll see if they can maintain this momentum now moving forward. But for today, we are done. 3 more best of 2s in the books as another day of Pro Series comes to a close. We'll have another 3 best of 2s for you tomorrow, next day, and the next day, and the next day. We're going to be going for a little while here on BTS as we power our way through this group stage. So for now, however, we are going to be hopping on out of here. So thank you all for spending a little bit of your weekend with us. Hope you enjoyed the Dota. We'll see you all tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your night.